Hey, this is Steve with Dabble Lab, and I am joined again with Dustin Coates. And today, Dustin is going to be talking about voice search. That I've been looking forward to this episode. I'm very interested in seeing how the voice model and the search functionality come together, overlap, or where one replaces the other. So I'll hand it over to you. I guess you're going to show us some of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to look at first is adding data into the search engine index. And I already went and did that because this isn't the most interesting thing as it relates to voice, but we do need some data in there.
Okay.
If you want to get up and running, I believe, provide some when you sign up and you go through that flow, but we also have on GitHub this interesting data sets repository as well. From there, what I took was some TED Talks, and I pulled those into Algolia. So if we look at that, you notice we've got a name, we've got description, we've got who the speakers were, different tags about what this was about. And so you could easily imagine someone saying, I want the TED Talk called Saving the Ocean One Island at a Time. That's a way that they might say it, especially if they had that title right in front of them. But more likely what they're going to say is something like, I want a TED Talk from Greg Stone about oceans. And you're going to need to be able to match that. And what we see there is a few tricky things that a good search engine will be able to handle. For example, I'm searching through multiple different attributes. I'm searching Greg Stone, who is the speaker, and I'm searching in the name or perhaps in the tag, something related to what this talk is about. There's also some words in there that don't really provide much value. If I say, find a talk by Greg Stone about oceans, then oceans and ocean we probably want to match because they're effectively the same thing. And also we might have stop words in there, things like a, and, the, words that when it comes to matching a query to a record, isn't providing really a ton of value. So we have all of that data stored in there. And what we go in and do is we essentially configure our search engine. We say, what are the attributes that someone's going to search to? What are the types of things that they might want to look for inside of our records? And now we've got the name of that talk. We've also got, let's say, the description, because there's some information in there that people might want to match on. We've got the speakers. We certainly want to ask for talks from specific speakers, especially, say, Steve, you came up to me and said, hey, I really saw this great TED Talk from Bill Gates. I'm going to want to go, hey, show me a TED Talk by Bill Gates. And then finally, we can pull in the tags as well. This is what the user is searching through, but we also need some way to rank all of those results. Especially on voice, it's so important that just that first result is the one that really matches what the user is looking for. So in Algolia, at least, what we generally do is we have our ranking criteria, which matches textually. And then we can also pull in a numeric attribute, say like the popularity score, so that those that are more popular are ranked higher than those that aren't as popular.
So you can sort of use your own data for prioritization or ranking, yeah.
Exactly. All of this is your data. What we do is we provide you the engine and we provide you tools to configure it. Right here, I'm using the dashboard, but you can do this in code as well. Generally, most of the time I do. And then we build the engine for you. So we're not forcing you to any specific thing, and any good search engine should do the same as well. So what we see is that now if I'm searching for, let's say, Bill Gates malaria, what I'm going to see here, I'm going to see those results from Bill Gates that are about malaria right there. Often what we do on at least a visual perspective, or a visual search rather, in that visual UI, is we'll also allow people to filter by specific attributes. So we might want people to be able to filter based on the speaker. Or we may want them to be able to filter based on the tag as well. Once we update those settings, what we'll see is very similar to what we see in a GUI, where we've got the Bill Gates right here, we've got tags, and if we remove that search query right there, and we were to click on any of those speakers or tags, let's say Bill Gates again, we're only going to see the results that have Bill Gates as a speaker. The interesting thing, of course, is that in voice, we don't have that capability to click around on those filters. And so what we want to do is to build that into the voice search itself.
Okay.
Inside of Algolia, we have something called query rules that essentially do exactly the same thing. These are rules that you can apply to any inbound search that says, if this happens, then do this. One of the things we have here is if we see any of those speakers, so if we see Bill Gates or any of the other speakers that we have set aside as being a specific attributes, then what we can do is we can filter on that. And so we can say, if anyone asks explicitly for Bill Gates, then only show those talks by Bill Gates. The way I like to think about search is that we've got this giant haystack and we're looking for a needle inside of it. And the easiest way to do that is to slowly make those haystacks smaller until we have one that's manageable where we can just pluck out that needle.
So this seems similar to like slots. If I'm trying to connect this to how in say Alexa, you would have your utterance, and then within your utterance, you would try to pull out parameters that would be required for whatever you're doing to fulfill the intent. So in this case here, just trying to draw the analogy, it looks like something similar where in this case you pulled out the author from whatever it is that the user provides in the search term.
That's a really good way to think about it. And the interesting thing here is that, as I mentioned before, we can work very closely with slot values, or as we'll see in a second, you can send us the entire query and we can handle that too. So I always find it pretty useful to do the search inside the Algolia dashboard because we provide tooling to show why things are happening the way they were. So if somebody asks for talks about malaria from Bill Gates, what we're going to see here is that we're going to filter just on Bill Gates because this matches one of our speaker values. So we're not showing any other results. Now, this one by Bill Gates is pretty popular, but if there were other malaria-related talks, those might have ranked higher. So we're bringing that haystack into smaller and smaller so that it's really easy for us to get just the result that the user is looking for. Let's go ahead and go to the Alexa skill code and see how this integrates with that. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen momentarily so I can move over to the code. And you can see that?
Yeah.
Cool. And so what I have here is a starter skill. It's exactly what's created when you do ask new.
Okay.
And the only difference is I've added my own intent called the search intent. I provided a few different samples, and all of those are using a query slot of type Amazon.search query. Amazon.search query is a slot type that essentially allows you to get exactly what it says, a search query. But put another way, that is a string of unset length that you can then do anything you want with it. The only slight catch here is that at least in these samples right here, it needs to have some sort of carrier phrase that essentially tells Alexa, okay, after you hear this carrier phrase, be on the lookout for the search query. So just a few samples right here, like find query, show me talks about query, look for query. And so our user can say, Alexa, ask Inspire me to show me talks about malaria from Bill Gates. Or that query can go on for quite a long time. Do I need to redo that, Steve?
No, you can.
Okay.
I think it'll be fine.
Okay, cool. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get everything essentially after that carrier phrase. We could also pair this with the slots, just like you were mentioning before, Steve, where we sent all of those, say, speaker values, and we could have something like look for a talk by speaker on query. We've got the tooling inside of Algolia so that you don't need to do that, but you can certainly do that within here as well. Inside the code, all we're going to do is we're going to take that query value and we're going to send it to Algolia. So we want to import the Algolia search clients. We spend a lot of time building out our developer experience, and one of those that we spend the most time on perhaps is the JavaScript client. So you'll see that we provide a lot of tooling to essentially get you up and running. Our goal is that you're able to add this to your Alexa skill within the hour. It really should be that simple. And we'll just go ahead and instantiate that. Passing it the app ID, passing it the app ID, and the API key. This API key I'm not worried about showing you because it's a public API key.
Okay. Would there ever be a case where you would need to pass through everything, or can search query in your opinion do it for you all the time? Or would you ever want to create a custom slot type to try to pass everything through?
So what do you mean by a custom slot type to pass everything through?
Yeah, so to pass whatever the user says without any carry phrase in front of it, so just to just kind of open-ended.
Yeah, like so that's sort of the old school literal.
Yeah, like literal, where you have one character, two characters, or one word, two words, three words, and
And so what you're referencing here is this option where you essentially create a bunch of gibberish, and that will allow you to attempt to get at that. There might be some use cases where you can do that, or where you should do that rather. From what the Alexa team has said, though, is that the search query is a little bit better optimized. And so if you can use that, I would definitely recommend it.
Got it.
One thing that they've mentioned as well is that if you have essentially, if you have sorry, I'm blanking on the term. Okay, so let's go back.
Okay.
One thing that they've mentioned as well is that if you use dialogue management and you're eliciting for a slot, you can use search query there without a carrier phrase. So that could be another way to do it as well, where the user comes to you and just launches it or makes a request. And then you say, or your skill says rather, hey, what do you want? And then you're eliciting the search query, and there's no need for that carrier phrase. So what we've just done right here is we've essentially initialized our Algolia client. And this is what we'll use to go and reach out to the search engine and send back all that information. Like I mentioned, we really devote a lot of time to the developer experience here and a lot to the speed and the uptime as well. One of the things that I think is sort of unavoidable today, but I hope we can get on in the future, is a lot of that NLU that's happening whenever you speak with Alexa or Google Assistant is it can sometimes take a while. And the last thing you want to do is to add on extra latency because of your API calls. With our Algolia, our goal is that the round trip, literally as soon as you make that search to when you get the response back, is less than 50 milliseconds. So we'll grab the slot. We'll go ahead and grab the query slot value. We will go ahead and grab that off of the request envelope and make sure that's spelled correctly. And generally what we would want to do here is just make sure that there is a query that comes through, but just to be quick, we're not going to worry about it too much. Then we're going to reach out to Algolia. We're going to send that query to Algolia, and we're going to get the response back. I'm using the new await formats here, and the newer await format here, just because I like it. It's a little more clean, but we also
so clean.
Yeah, we also support callbacks and of course promises as well. So we want to do index.search. And just go ahead and pass it in that query string right there. There's also settings that you can apply at query time. We showed some of the ones that you would do at index time as well. But we'll go ahead and remove those stop words. So essentially any words like A and V, we're just going to ignore those while we're searching. And we're going to ignore the plurals as well. So ocean and oceans are going to be the same, but so are feet and foot. And that's fair because functionally when people search, they're going to search in different ways. And searching with the plural versus the singular, nearly all the time doesn't make a difference. The last thing I always like to do in these conversational search queries is we know that people are going to be very wordy and they might throw things in that query that the documents, the records just don't have in there as text. And so we would do something where we send all of the words as optional words. And the reason we can do that is because even though you might look at this and you go, well, this isn't going to provide good results because maybe there are going to be some records that match some words and not others, but just a few of them. One of the things we do in our ranking formula is we will rank them at least partially based on how many words match. So if I search for spam email, for example, or reply to spam email, if a record matches reply, spam, and email, it's going to rank higher than if it just matches to reply and email or just spam email.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And again, here we would usually just check to see if there were any hits, but we'll just assume that there are. And we're going to say the talk that we want at least is that very first hit. This is the one that's ranked the highest based on both the textual relevance and that numeric popularity that we added earlier. Some of the things, by the way, that we have to fix that, and that's also why search is quite powerful, is we've got those query rule settings that I showed earlier where you can go, okay, he's searching Microsoft CEO quite a bit, and we don't have anything, or Microsoft. And so if someone searches for Microsoft, if Dustin's always searching for Microsoft, then show talks either by Bill Gates or Steve Ballmer. We can also do synonyms as well, where the world's richest man, if somebody searches for that, maybe we translate that through synonyms to Bill Gates. And from here, it's exactly like it would be for anything else. We would just go ahead and grab that result and say, I've got a video. It's titled talk.name, and it's by the speakers. Want to watch? And then we ask, probably want to take that out of the code right there. There we go. Ooh. And then we just send that off to the user. So our goal here is to take just that one top result. There might be situations where you can have 2 or 3, and especially with a screen in this multimodal situation, you can easily imagine speaking out the top results and showing the rest.
For me, you've connected a lot of dots on how to integrate the voice experience and the search side. So I am extremely thankful for you sharing this with us and sharing your time. How would somebody connect if they've got questions, and or where would they get code samples and things like that for this? And maybe we can take that example file and share it out along with a link or something like that in the show notes.
Yeah, for sure. So for the sample code, I'll make sure it's up on GitHub so that we can share that.
Perfect.
We have really thorough documentation. I love our documentation team here. And so they have information both on general search, but also applying it to voice as well. And finally, if anyone has any questions or they want to use Algolia, send me an email. It's dustin@algolia.com. And I can set you up with, we have a trial sort of just to start with Algolia, but I can set you up maybe with a little bit of longer access so you can get a longer time to try. Plus, I'm interested in what people are using search for on voice as well.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks again, Dustin. Really do appreciate it. And we will look forward to being able to connect with you again, hopefully for another one of these sessions at some point in the future.
Great. Thanks again for having me, Steve. It was fantastic.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.